Hey guys, welcome back to the All Islanders podcast. Today we have some big news. The Islanders are moving to Elmont. Belmont Park is the location. Just to clarify, the Islanders will be playing in Belmont Park, which is in the town of Elmont. So we're going to try to keep to that vocabulary, even though that's tough because they're so similar. But that's what I want to start off talking about today. Then we're going to talk again. We ran a little late on our last episode, but we want to continue to talk about some players that we liked and disliked this season. Again, Baba Boss has sponsored us, so we're going to give you guys another code. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Garth Snow, and that will be it. We're going to try to keep this one short. But to start, I want to go to Jared. How do you feel about the move and the Islanders moving to Elmont?
I'm gonna say I'm pretty happy that they're leaving Barclays Center. It's a very nice arena, like on the inside. I mean, it looks beautiful, but a new state-of-the-art arena built just for hockey and not built for basketball, and having a hockey team move in there is going to be a really good thing, and hopefully the Islanders can bring cups to that arena in the future.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Belmont Park being the next home for the Islanders in our last episode, but unfortunately at that time it was not confirmed. That was purely speculation. So right now we know the Islanders have put in a bid to build an arena in Belmont Park, and that will be next to the Belmont Raceway. And that it's looking right now like it's about, I don't know, you guys can chime in on this, but I'm saying 95% chance we're moving to Belmont within the next half decade. It's looking like that's going to be the next Islanders home. We're here today with the special guest, Harris. He's one of the writers on Islanders.com, and he's an active game goer. He goes to a lot of games at Barclays, so he may be a little upset about the move, but I want to go to him and ask, how do you feel about the confirmed bid to play in Belmont Park?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm not upset at all about the move. If anything, I'm glad because, I like the players. I still have to take that 45, 50-minute train ride and spend that extra money. But, basically what Flag said is they need an arena at the Islanders, and, they're getting one. And after all these years of speculating, what's going to happen with, the Coliseum, where are we moving, but this is going back like 10 years already. So, it's about time. There's some clarification. It's a good area for Belmont. It's kind of become, a good sports hub of New York and Long Island. And to be completely honest, it's much better for the players. Shorter drives. They don't have to take the train. Players don't even like going there and taking the train. And I just feel for the fans it's much easier. Nassau County-based team, they get to drive, 10, 15, 20 minutes to the game just like they did before at the Coliseum. And, I just feel like the players and the fans just feel unwelcome at Barclays Center with, them sharing between the Islanders and the Nets and the fact that they play in Brooklyn. But, coming back to Nassau County, I think it's going to be a much better experience for us fans and the players.
Yeah, definitely. Having our own state-of-the-art arena. They claim that Barclays is state-of-the-art, but it's state-of-the-art for basketball. It's not state-of-the-art for hockey. But having our own arena will be great. So again, if you guys are active listeners to the podcast, we did talk about this last week, but I want to stress now that it is confirmed the Islanders are in fact interested in taking this route for their next home. And again, I said 95% chance they'll be playing there within the next half decade. That's what it's looking like. So expect more news on that coming into the offseason. I don't want to talk about this for too much just because we talked about it last time, as I said. So right now I'm going to move on to what we're doing on Islanders.com with the player report card series. We're grading players, and right now we have some surprises. We have some people who have lived up to expectations and who haven't. So Jared, you've written a few of the report cards. Who do you feel was the Islanders' biggest surprise this season? Who do you feel was their biggest bust? And who do you look forward to really play well next season?
So, biggest surprise is going to be probably the same for everyone. And Anders Lee, no one expected him to do as well as he did this year. And I'm just amazed that he did so well. And hopefully he can do as well as he did this year next year. And I'm hoping to see that out of him again because this year was just an incredible year from him. and I'm just speechless about him. Biggest bust was definitely Hamonic. I've never seen a worse year out of Hamonic. I hope next year he can pick up his game because this year was just not what I like to see out of him. And my hope for next year is Andrew Ladd, because once January hit, he really picked it up, ended with 23 goals. Hoping to see that assist number go up from 8, which is pathetic for a player of his caliber to only have 8 assists, getting paid a lot of money. But he's my hope for next year to produce more. But otherwise, Lee was obviously a big surprise. Hamonic was worse, and Ladd hope for next year.
Yeah, so I'll give mine, and then we'll go to Harris. But right now, my biggest surprise was Steven Giunta. One of our writers, Aiden, wrote a great article saying that when we don't do our report cards in a traditional way. We take in mind the player's role, which is a first-line center, which is a fourth-line winger, which is a 14th forward, and a farmhand. And we really look at how they played living up to that role. And Steven Giunta is probably going to get a higher grade than John Tavares simply because what he was asked to do, he exceeded expectations, whereas John Tavares, had a slow start. He had a great season, but, he wasn't possibly his best, many could say. So my biggest surprise is Giunta simply because I'm not a big stats person. I'm really not. But when you look at stats for him, it's hard not to be amazed. I think he had 6 points. I'm not really sure. But when you look at those points, I think 80% of them or something were points on game-winning goals or assists. That's crazy. I mean, just thinking about that, it's not even possible. 5 of his 6 points, I have the stat up now, came on either a game-tying or go-ahead goals, obviously making it clear that when he did score, he saved it for timely situations. You look at games against Carolina. We all remember that game where the Islanders lost 8-4, and on the screen they at the end of the game to make it even worse, NBC Sports put up from Nassau Coliseum, New York. We all remember that. If you follow the Instagram account, you remember that. But he was a +3 in that game. They gave up 4 more goals than they scored. Crazy year out of him. He was really good, was tenacious, helped replace Martin. He's my biggest surprise. My biggest bust was Thomas Hickey, just because I felt like I'm a big Thomas Hickey fan, and I really expected a lot out of him this year. And when you look at his numbers and you look at how he played, there's a reason he was moved to forward, and there was a reason why he was benched underweight a lot. It's because he wasn't good this year. They gave him the responsibility of being a second-pair defenseman. DeHaan took over as that role and really ran with it, but Hickey was not good. And what I look for next year, I look for more of a team effort. I look for everyone to get on the same page. I look for the new guys to, get the system better. I look for Chimera and Ladd and everyone to really get together. And I'm just hoping next year will be better with the addition of a few players. But I'm excited for next year. How do you feel, Harris?
Next year should be a better year. Doug Waite is going to be a full-time head coach, not taking over for Jack Capuano in the middle of the season. So with Waite as a full-time head coach, maybe, Ladd can heat up quicker. Same thing with Chimera and everyone else. So, I hope they can resolve their problems that they had at the beginning of the season this year and make it back to the playoffs.
Yeah, so do you happen to have a player who was your biggest surprise and a player who was your biggest disappointment that is different from me and Jared?
Yeah, definitely. I'll go with my biggest surprise is Josh Bailey. 58 points this year is pretty good, and obviously we know Kyle Oposo, Franz Nielsen, those are 2 big offensive guys that you have to replace. And everyone thought, the big guys who you needed to be to step up a little more would be like Ryan Strome or Brock Nelson. But and everyone thought, Josh Bailey's going to be the same kind of player. But 58 points is good for him, and he was a mainstay on the line with John Tavares and Anders Lee, and he played with Tavares pretty much the whole season except for maybe like 2 games. So Bailey's my biggest surprise. My biggest disappointment is got to be Cal Clutterbuck. I mean, this guy gets paid like $3.5 million now. They give him a big contract extension to do what? Hit people. He scored 15 goals the season before, and this year he was just, to me, he was just non-existent. 5 goals is just not going to cut it. And what was the best fourth line in hockey, where you had Matt Martin, who's now gone, as a table setter. Casey Cizikas is a big playmaker, and Cal Clutterbuck, who did score the goals, now is just depleted because Cal Clutterbuck, with 5 goals, is just not going to cut it. Like I said, and remember, he was injured for a good chunk of the season, but still, he's just got to score more.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I want to move on to our next topic. This has been kind of a self-induced case study, as I call it. Me and a few other writers have been in. We have a writers' chat, and there's been huge arguments over Matt Martin. Like, everyone's going crazy over this because he's made a difference for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's had a bad regular season, but he has been really effective in the playoffs, and when his fourth line's been given a chance, he's done well, and he's even scored. So we wrote an article called the Matt Martin Case Study, and this was like the longest article we've ever written. It's like 30 paragraphs, but it's like a huge article about, did Matt Martin make a real difference for the Maple Leafs? Was he the reason why the Islanders didn't make the playoffs? That was their big thing, and I said he was a huge loss. He was the reason why Clutterbuck and Cizikas didn't play well, and he was the reason why we didn't make the playoffs. Aiden, who I've mentioned a few times already this podcast, Aiden said he doesn't matter. Aiden says he's a bad hockey player. He didn't say he was bad specifically, but, he doesn't think he offers a lot for a team besides hitting. And we paid Clutterbuck almost $4 million to hit, and he has a decent shot. He can snipe some goals. But you look at paying $4 million for him, but you couldn't give Martin $2 million. Very confusing. The lines were shaky this year. The fourth line wasn't good. So, Jared, I just want to ask you, what's your side on the Matt Martin debate?
I'm going to start off with saying that I agree with your side, David. Matt Martin was a huge loss to the Islanders this offseason. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I completely feel he's the reason that the Islanders started off really slow. Harris, you said earlier, they were the best fourth line in hockey, and I think that's a line that'll live on for a long time, being known as that they were the best fourth line in hockey until he left. And Matt Martin was the physical one. Zeker was the playmaker, and Clutter was the scorer, as you guys have all clearly said. And the loss of him did change this team. Everyone's roles are now reassessed. Chimera is now the goal scorer. Or you could even say Kuhlman is, because he now plays on the fourth line. Cizikas is still the playmaker, but now you have Clutterbuck being the hitter, who Clutterbuck, yes, does hit a lot, but he doesn't get those same energetic hits that Martin got. Now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he plays I think it's 8 minutes a game, and he gets paid a good amount of money for 8 minutes a game. And you brought up a point, David, that we pay Clutterbuck a decent amount of money for hitting, and we couldn't give Martin $2 million. And my point to that is where I'm going to agree with Aiden. Statistically, Clutterbuck's a better player, goal-wise, assist-wise, and Martin's just a hitter. I think Clutterbuck's contract could have been lowered, but Martin definitely isn't a $2 million player, in my opinion, because you don't need to be paying someone a lot of money to go and hit. But it's just the two sides you can look at. I overall see that Clutterbuck hasn't been the same as he was last year playing alongside Martin, because his role has now had to change. But otherwise, Martin was a huge loss to the Islanders, and is one of the reasons why I think we had a bad year. Harris, your thoughts?
I didn't really think it made a big deal. But, at first I really thought it did. I remember going to a game against Tampa early in the year in November when the team was just down and out in last place, the game where they lost 4-0. And on the train ride home, I really said, Matt Martin's a big loss. No energy in the building provided that. But, as everyone started to get, the Chimeras and the lads, and the goalie and the not goalie, the coaching change, everyone started to contribute a bit more. And statistically, yeah, 8 points just isn't going to cut it. I don't even think he's worth $2.5 million. But be realistic for a second. Is Matt Martin going to help you win a playoff series? No, I don't think he's going to help anyone win a playoff series. I don't think he's valuable at all to me. And, just hitting people, I just think the game of hockey today is just gone away from that. So I don't think he would have been as valuable to the team making the playoffs this year or not.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I think Matt Martin makes a difference in a playoff series. I think that Matt Martin is the reason why the Leafs won game 2 or 3. I forget which one, but there was one. Was it game 2 or 3, guys?
2.
Yeah, game 2 when their fourth line was on the ice for an offensive zone faceoff, and they actually, Matt Martin went to the corner, caused a turnover, kicked it to Boyle, who made a beautiful pass, and they scored. I think Matt Martin's hits lead to offense. I think his hits get the crowd involved, and I also think that Matt Martin is one of the more important players for the Islanders, obviously, and he's even one of the more important players for the Maple Leafs. Mike Babcock consistently says, even though he doesn't play him, it's more of a matchup thing. He says Matt Martin is such an important player for the young guys. He says he's one of the most important players for the team, and he also says that Matt Martin's a big reason why they score a lot of their goals, even though he's not on the points on the stat sheet. So I really think Matt Martin's important. In my article, I found a quote from I forget who it was, but it was one of the major broadcasters, and he said, Matt Martin, Matt Martin hits someone, Cal Clutterbuck steals the puck and hits someone, Casey Zizekas goes in and kills someone, and the crowd is going crazy, even though Barclays Center only houses a small amount of people and no one shows up. That crowd, whoever shows up, is going crazy, and it's because of Matt Martin starting it. So I really think Matt Martin's important. I think he's the reason we didn't make the playoffs. We only need one more point. If you put him out there against Detroit or you put him out there against San Jose, I guarantee you that they're not giving up that goal with 30 seconds left. I can guarantee it. Matt Martin's plus-minus is always great. So that's my view on the Matt Martin saga. Anyone have... all right, that's it. We could pause now.
Yeah, I just got a quick thing. I got a quick thing with the Matt Martin thing. Obviously, I disagree with you. I think he's invaluable. There was one thing that separated Matt Martin.
Harris, hold on.
Casey's.
Sorry, before you said that, I said let's take a pause. So that's going to be hard to cut. So just mark it 18 minutes exactly. We had a cut, and you can keep going. Sorry about that. You can restart. Just say, so I want to add one more thing. Okay. So 3, 2, 1, go.
Wait, Harris.
Separates Matt Martin.
Harris, wait a sec, Harris. Yeah. Quick thing. Use the Skype chat look at the Skype chat. We've been saying stuff. And when you're not talking, mute yourself.
Yeah, there's a slight echo. Okay? All right, you can go. Sorry about that. 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, just getting back to that, there was one thing about Matt Martin that really separated him from Casey Zizekas, Cal Clutterbuck. You never saw Matt Martin killing penalties on penalty kill. You didn't really see him go to drive the net, tip goals. Let alone he didn't really score many. So that's just my view on it. I didn't think he was invaluable. Kuhlman kills penalties on the fourth line. Matt Martin doesn't. That's just my say on it.
Yeah, I agree. Matt Martin was the. I think it's more of even a body type thing. I mean, Matt Martin's not really fast. He's a big guy. He's a hitter. You don't want to go around killing people on the penalty kill. So I think that Casey Zizekas, Kyle Clutterbuck are more smooth players. Matt Martin was the 6th or 7th killer. When Cal Clutterbuck took a penalty, Matt Martin went out there with Zizekas. So just like maybe Gianta or maybe Nelson or Bailey were big killers weren't big killers, but they killed some penalties. That was kind of Matt Martin's role, which is valuable in its own sense, but it's not as valuable as Clutterbuck and Zizekas. But also, I think it's unfair to compare him to that. That's not his game. He doesn't kill penalties, so that's something you have to accept. But I just want to move on from the Matt Martin saga now. I feel like I've written about. Matt Martin's been basically my life for the last 3 weeks. So I want to kind of move on from him to someone that hasn't really gotten a lot of hate recently, even though he kind of should. But Garth Snow, I just want to talk about him briefly. I'm going to go to Jared. That's his favorite person to talk about. But, Garth Snow isn't going to get fired. That's just like it's 95% chance the Islanders are moving to Elmont. It's a 95% chance Garth Snow is the GM for the team next year. And that's pretty unfortunate. But that's just something Islanders fans have to accept as reality. So unfortunately, Garth Snow would have been fired already if he was going to be. He's not. So Jared, how do you feel that Garth Snow needs to approach this offseason? And what do you look for? What do you look from him to not make the same mistakes he has in the past?
He's got to keep the big names around for a while. Do what they want. I mean, he did a good thing when he made Doug White the head coach, because it was truly what Tavares wanted, and it was set. It was what Tavares wanted, and doing something like that makes him look good. And those are the little things that are going to keep him around. If Tavares goes up to the management and goes, I want a star winger," then they better be prepared to go and get that star winger. I'm very surprised that they didn't get Duchesne, because people say it just that he didn't try for Duchesne, but he did, and it was really Sakic in the end that didn't give in. And when I say, by the way, keep the big names around for a while, keep Tavares around, keep Lee around, keep players like Boychuk and Leddy around, make sure they don't go. Tavares' players to play around, just to clarify on that. But as I was saying, Snow has to do those little things that keep his job. And a few weeks ago, I made a really, really bold prediction that Snow would get fired the Friday after the season ended. And obviously, that's not true. He is still here. And I hope to see trades out of him. Snow made terrible trades. And then all of a sudden, he made those Boychuk and Leddy deals, which were absolutely incredible, in my opinion, that he got those two guys. And it really changed my perspective on him, that he could get them. And then he goes and signs Kuhlman and Grabowski, and in their first year, they were both okay. They were both, I'll say, good. And then after that, they changed. But in hindsight, you couldn't really see that change happening. But at first, that looked really good for this team, getting Kuhlman and Grabowski. But as I said, it's the little things like that need to happen. And I hope for him to make a trade for Duchesne this offseason and something like that to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, just clarifying, when you said keep the big names around for a while, that just means, I think you mean don't do anything stupid, don't do anything drastic, don't panic even though his job may be on the line. I think that they better do, to John Tavares, he's a quiet guy, we know that. But if John Tavares asks for anything, they better be giving him whatever he wants. If he wants a winger, you better, sacrifice some things to get him a winger. If he wants, I don't think he want a winger. He was happy with Lee and Bailey. But if he wants anything, you give it to him. I think you try to make him happy. I'd love to see Duchesne. I'd love to see Garth Snow do something. But, Garth Snow has never made big moves. People think the Boychuk and Leddy deals were big, but I guarantee you the Blackhawks GM, and I guarantee you the Bruins GM called up Garth Snow, said, "Hey, we don't want Nick Leddy. Hey, we don't want Johnny Boychuk." They didn't phrase like that. They said, "We got a great piece to offer you," even though they probably didn't say we don't have the cap for them. But they wanted to get rid of those two players, and they successfully did that. The Islanders gave up picks, and it was a salary cap dump for those teams, even though they're great players. But Garth Snow's biggest move probably is the Vanek trade, maybe Halak. I don't consider those Leddy and Boychuk trades big moves. I really think Garth Snow has shied away from making big trades in the past, and I really think that he needs to do that this season. Off season, I want Duchesne. I want Pulock up next year, and that's what I'm going for. So, Jared, do you have any response to what I just said about perhaps the Boychuk and Leddy deals not being big, and what do you want in the future?
I agree. Before I might have said they were big, and they looked big, is what I meant to say. They looked big. But like you said, they were probably like, we have a good piece to offer for a little amount. And, having a player like Nick Leddy for what we got him for was a really good deal. But he, like you say, he's very afraid of making these big moves. And I think he's afraid of making these big moves and having a bust like with what happened with Rick DiPietro, signing to him with a completely ridiculous contract, and then him getting injured and his career being over. I think things like that push him away from these big deals, and in the end, he's got to do them and take these risks. Because without taking risks, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah,
Harris.
Harris.
Yeah, Garceau's got to go. Although it's just unlikely to happen, I mean, he has to. And what irks me the most is, he says when Capuano gets fired, he'll do anything to make the team better, but come the trade deadline, he just doesn't do anything. And it wasn't like the trade deadline from 2 seasons ago when, he just acquired a minor piece like Shane Prince. He absolutely didn't do a single thing during the deadline. And he brought up Halak late. He did not have Ryan Pulak here this year. And those are 2-3 things that cost him this season. That could have been something great, and they could have went to the playoffs. Garceau, in my opinion, has got to go. The Lenny and Boychuk trades were the only big thing, and then we really so he's just got to go, and that's my say on it. He really has to, because he's just not doing anything. And if he wants to save his job, take a risk. Trade the pick in the draft that you have upcoming this year. That I think would save him.
Yeah, so sorry guys, rough audio there, but basically what Harris was saying is what all Islanders fans are feeling. Garceau's got to do something. He can't be really quiet like he has. He needs to be active like he said he would when he said he wanted to make the team better no matter what. And he wants him to trade the first-round pick if an opportunity presents itself. So that's it on Garceau. Islanders fans are really aggravated with that. But, that's just what it's been like for a while. Unfortunately, Garceau's our GM. He's was given the job right after he retired from being our backup goalie for some reason. And ever since then, he's had full control. He's the president. He's had full control of the Islanders. And unfortunately, that means he can do what he wants, and some fans aren't going to agree with what he's done. I don't think he's a good GM. I wish he would be held responsible for his mistakes, like everyone else has been, like Jack Capuano. But unfortunately, he hasn't been, and he's our GM. So I want to move on to the NHL playoffs. You look at these teams. They all made some good moves. Look at Edmonton, who just advanced. They made some bold moves this offseason, and they really worked out for them. You look at Toronto signing Matt Martin, other players. You look at all these teams, Washington, making a big move. All these teams have added players, and they're doing great right now. Jared, I just want to come to you. Which new player on a team has really made a big influence on a team's playoff hopes? And you could take some time to think about this, but I'm just wondering, will the Islanders have a new player that makes an impact on their playoff hopes? You could take it away.
I have a question for you quickly. Are we talking like this season new? Are we talking can be last season and this season?
Yeah.
How new are we talking?
I mean, Matt Duchene. I'm very subtly trying to take a job.
Yeah, I get what you're saying with Matt Duchene,
Yeah.
but like,
I someone who's recently
McDavid
new,
or like Austin Matthews new.
Austin Matthews, like someone that new, pretty new, someone who's the Islanders can look to as someone who has made a great impression on his new team, and the Islanders can look to as someone who they could use.
I gotta think about this, but the one name that comes to mind is, I want to say Austin Matthews as I try to figure someone else out. Maybe Kevin Shattenkirk, but he hasn't really been that big since getting traded. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Capitals games, but a player like Austin Matthews, maybe Milan Lucic, who get on a team and, have a big impact, just is what you really want. A player like Matt Duchene would hopefully change the way this team goes. The one player who's currently on the Islanders that I could see having a great future and helping out this team happens to be Josh Hosang. Josh Hosang came up and immediately had an impact, and hopefully he stays up next season and has a very similar impact. And I think that Josh Hosang is, if anything, the current New York Islander to look at to make an impact and help out your future. But if we're looking for players off the team, just again, Matt Duchene is that one that you want to go for.
Yeah, here's when I was asked that question, it was very confusing, but here's what I was referencing. I was referencing the Islanders looking at a move a team made. This is my move that I have in mind. I have the New York Rangers making a huge, bold move and trading Derek Brassard and a 7th-round pick for Mika Zibanejad and a 2nd-round pick. And you look at that trade, some thought they got worse, but when you look at that trade, they really addressed the need. They got a young second-line center who really addressed some speed, and he gave the team a lot. And he scored the game winner for them in Game 5, I think. He was a huge piece for them this season, and I really want the Islanders to do something like that, get their center that they need. Mika Zibanejad was terrific for the Rangers, and I really like how he's played. He advanced them to the first round, and I'm really impressed with how Zibanejad has played. Unfortunately, he was not a failed prospect, but you look at Shane Prince, you look at other players in Ottawa who don't really, do too well and get traded. If only the Islanders could have traded for Zibanejad instead of Prince. Prince was very disappointing this year, but yeah, Zibanejad's my pick. So right now, I'm just going to take a quick pause and bring up our sponsor, Bobble Boss. So as we mentioned last episode, Bobble Boss is now sponsoring our podcast. And while some of you guys might think, with work and, bills and buying food and, all the stuff you need to buy, a bobblehead might be a frivolous purchase. But buying a bobblehead is a great gift for anyone. And using our code ALLISLEspodcast, you can actually get 20% off your bobblehead, which makes it a very reasonable and affordable gift for anyone. So with that, I just want to bring that up. All Isles Podcast, all lowercase. Will be a great code for you guys to use on BobbleBoss.com to get a great gift for a loved one with Mother's Day coming around and other holidays coming around. So with that, again, thank you to BobbleBoss for sponsoring this podcast. Their logo's on our cover page that you can see in our SoundCloud description right below. So thank you, BobbleBoss, and use that code, guys. So that was our message from our sponsor, and I think we're just going to end it off right now with talking about our site, as we always do. The Report Card series is live and well, and I just want to talk about how we grade the players and exactly what we do. So we write on the top of every report card that the most important factor is importance to the team and consistency. Offense and defense are important, but they're taken into account for the player and his standard. It will be looked on by the role that they have. So we look at our highest scores so far. We got Steven Gianta, we got Josh Bailey actually getting our highest scores so far. Steven Gianta, as I mentioned earlier, really played well when he was given his task of being a 13th forward. You look at Calvin DeHaan, he was our 3rd best scorer. He had his flaws, but Calvin DeHaan really emerged as that ideal second pair defenseman, and hopefully Vegas doesn't take him. Jason Chimera got a solid B+, so did Boychuk and Beauvillier. And you look at some of our worst scorers, you have Andrew Ladd getting a C. Andrew Ladd was not great this season. He was better as the season went on, and when the Islanders got better, Ladd got better, so that was taken into account, but his start was really bad and should be penalized in his score, so he got a bad grade. Thomas Hickey had a bad year, unfortunately. I mentioned him as my most disappointing player, so Hickey got a bad grade. Clutterbuck and Cizikas, unfortunately, failed to live up to their expectations with Matt Martin gone, and they really didn't have a great score. And Travis Hamonic so far received the worst score. He was supposed to be our number 1 defenseman, and he didn't live up to expectations. So that's our All Islanders. That's our All Islanders report card series. We have some other great stuff on the website. We have an interview with Pat LaFontaine. We have a Thank You Anders Lee article. We have a Matt Martin case study, as I mentioned. And that's basically it with the site. On our Instagram account, All Islanders and All Islanders 2, we're starting to do some more live streams Those have been great. It's basically the podcast, but more informal and a little more free, and they're longer as well. So definitely stay tuned and follow us on Instagram. And with that, guys, we try to keep this podcast short. It's only going to wind up being 35 minutes. The other ones have been longer because we've had interviews with great guests like Arthur Staple, Brian Compton, and Andy Graziano. But we're going to end this one right now. We're going to thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks to our new guest Harris. He was great today. And with that, guys, thank you so much for listening to the All Unders podcast. We're approaching our 10th episode, so that will be a milestone for us. But with that, thanks, guys.